Okay, so everybody's waking up. Wonderful. So, welcome here at the Cube Hotel. It's really a great pleasure for me to welcome Célia Blauel. She is a very good friend of mine, working for the city of Paris, for Anne Hidalgo, who is the mayor of the city of Paris. And we are working together now for more than 8 years in a special organization which is called Energy Cities. So that's an organization where cities are working together, exchange their experience, try to find better solutions to fight against climate change. And this is one of the main points where we have to work on the global scale if we wanted to find a new way into a new green economy, into a perspective for the next generation. That's the reason why I think this is so important that I was very pleased that Célia said, yes, Eckart, I'm coming to Heidelberg. And I'm very pleased because she has been responsible also as the deputy mayor. So for all the environmental topics, climate change, water is a very special key of her engagement in Paris. And she was also involved in the Paris Agreement. As you have heard, the Paris Agreement was one of the main political commitments, not only on the national scale, it was also the first time when we worked together on the Paris Agreement in Paris at the convention that local leaders play a major role in take over the responsibility to fight against climate change. So I don't want to go in too many details. I'm very pleased that Célia is here. She will speak in English, so I hope you can follow her, otherwise I will translate it. And I'm very pleased that you're all here and that we have a good discussion about climate change, about what's going on in France, what's going on in Europe, and what we can achieve here in Heidelberg. So the floor is yours. Célia, I'm very pleased that you're here. Many thanks and give a big applause. Célia Blauel.
Thank you. Thank you, and let me tell you my big pleasure to be here with you tonight. Und es tut mir wirklich leid, nicht auf Deutsch zu sprechen, aber es ist so zu schwer für mich. Vielleicht at the end. No, it's true that when Eckart told me, can you come in Heidelberg, I said yes, without thinking about the kids that are complaining a lot tonight. I was really happy to come, to join that special moment for you, but also glad to participate with you tonight about that discussion about climate change. I'm going to try with a lot of humility to put into prospect our discussion to come with my experience in Paris, from Paris to Heidelberg to Europe. Yes, we did a lot of things together. Maybe before starting, let me just say a few words about who I am. As Eckart said, I'm a fellow of the mayor of Paris, Anne Hidalgo. I must say we are actually friends since 2014. I'm a former member of the Green Party, and I'm actually deputy mayor of Paris in charge of climate, ecological transition, energy and water from 2014 to 2021. And to tell you about what's my job in Paris for the last 10 years, my job in Paris was to build and to lead public policies to prepare the French capital to face the major issues of our century, to tackle climate change, to face natural resource scarcity, but also to promote social equity. Kind of an intense job, we could say, as much enthusiastic, that's scary to some extent, considering all the issues we have to face. As many other cities or local authorities around the world, Paris is very much committed to this global fight. As a matter of fact, nearly 2 decades, cities are definitely on the front lines to fight climate change. We feel the burden of a responsibility to act because we the people living in our cities, our way of life is actually at the sources of 70% of the greenhouse gas emission, but also of the scarcity of natural resources. But we also feel this responsibility, namely as local leaders, because we know we have a real ability to act at the local level. We are operating on a local level, on coherent territories, having efficient public tools that we actually think, at least in France, that they are more efficient than the national one. and we share that special link with citizens. So considering all these aspects with Mayor Hidalgo when she was elected in 2014, our line was from the very beginning to build public policy answering the urge by putting radical measures to transform our way of living, of consuming and of producing in Paris. And it was the conviction on which we built our climate action plan. So the aim was clear. It was to be carbon neutral, 100% renewable energy by 2050 in line with the Paris Agreement. And the method was to work at all scales, every field of life of the Paris people we could change. And we were working on 3 pillars: transforming the city, mobilization of the civil society, and international European cooperation. And actually, we were willing to work on everything we could on the city. So tonight I could tell you about mobility, energy efficiency, development of renewable energies, all the things that actually you are also experiencing in your city. But I'll just concentrate on 3 examples to show you what's going on in Paris. First, one of the projects we had and we led, which is really showing what we did in Paris, is the transformation of the banks along the River Seine, which really reflects that comprehensive strategy. And we started that project in 2014, and the idea was to get rid of the cars along the riverside to create the biggest green lines in Paris. The idea was first to reduce the use of individual cars within the city, and in France we are a bit like late compared to you, to reduce air pollution, but also to tackle GHG emission. Also, meanwhile, we were developing public transportation. And at the same time, we were really willing to answer the wish of people in Paris to get closer to nature. So more green with new green spaces, plantation, but also more water with that walk along the River Seine, and actually soon the possibility to jump and to swim in the river. This project has been, yeah, no, that's true. I'm not sure I see you smiling, but that's true.
A question, not smiling, questioning.
I can talk about it later. This project has actually become a very popular success in Paris. And if you've been to Paris quite recently, or if you're going to, I really advise you to go from a walk from the Hôtel de Ville to the Musée d'Orsay or to the Alexander III Bridge, because it's really an experience of the ecological transition. But I have also to say that it's one thing to draw a project, it's something else to implement it. And even with the context of global warming, from 2014 to 2016, we, the Hidalgo team, we were facing kind of an opposition, treated like fools, by politicians from all colors, really all colors, from a majority of press and media, and definitely by a certain numbers of lobbies. So let me tell you that ecological transition, is definitely about dreaming the world of tomorrow, but it's also a lot about courage and vision, and I'm sure that Eckart could tell you a lot about it. Second illustration of our action was the Food and Water Program. From 2014, I was at the head of Eau de Paris, Water of Paris, which is the public company for water production and distribution. And you have to know that in Paris, the water system is still based on a utility, partly based on a utility that was founded in the 19th century. So the water is brought to the city by aqueducts, 3 of them, going on 150 kilometers far from the city. And these water sources are on farmlands. So even with being urban people, we were talking to farmers, and to protect the quality of water, we built cooperation with farmers to transform their agriculture to more sustainable and organic one. And so from 2020, Paris is the first city in Europe authorized by the European Commission to have its own agriculture program. And we're not following the European rules anymore, or actually we're helped a little bit. And this program had many interesting benefits because it preserved water, obviously, but also helped to reduce air and soil pollution, the exposition of chemicals of the farmers. But also we built a partnership with farmers that they can sell what they were growing into the collective canteens of the city. So supporting a new local supply chain. I have to tell you, I'm very proud of this experience, so I could talk about it about hours if you want to know more about it later on. But it was for me very interesting to talk about it because it shows also how implementing ecological transition is about political will, dialogue, local dialogue, having a lot of knowledge, technical knowledge, but also the need to act from local to the European level if you want to make really concrete and long-term changes. So that was also really interesting for me, and I think it would be one of the points of the discussion to see on how we're working from city to Europe, how it's important from local to global, masterwords in ecological engagement. It also, to me, showed that project the illustration of the key for our future, which needs the building of wider cooperation between urban and rural worlds. Eventually, my third example would be not about mitigation, which was a big part of my job in Paris, but about adaptation to climate change. Adaptation, resilience are words that we unfortunately start to hear a lot in our common languages, especially after the hot, dry, and kind of scary summer we had this summer. And so how to adapt, how to live with effects of climate change, how to adapt our territories was one of the key questions I had to face. For 10 years now, IPCC is actually ringing the bell, saying that yes, we have to mitigate, but well, we have no choice than to live with climate change, that we're going to have stronger and more frequent heat waves, floods and drought. You had to know about it in Germany, unfortunately, as well. Fires, the erosion of biodiversity, the fall of biodiversity, so hard in English, that one, will no more be headlines in newspaper of something happening somewhere in the world, but will be our issue for all of us, and we have to prepare our cities and population. In this prospect, with my team in Paris, we launched the Oasis program. The idea was to transform all the school playgrounds, to get rid of concrete, to plant more trees and grass for kids, to have a better environment in their everyday life. But the idea was also to deal much more with the rain, the rainwater, that it doesn't go to sewage, but go back to nature. The idea was also to have micro-local oases to face when we have heat waves within the city. It was really nice to implement that program. Actually, I found it really fun, and the kids were confirming it, because when we opened the first playgrounds without concrete but with trees and they could play with leaves, it was really, really funny. And also, it sounds like good sense, but then again, it was not that easy, and that program was not a success at the very beginning. For better illustration is that parents were complaining because kids were dirty when they're coming home. The planet is on fire, but we have problems with mud. But in the end, and that was the goal of it, it was a discrete but certain urban revolution. Because at the beginning we had to go like by step, but then it opened the idea that was impossible 2 years ago was possible. Yes, you can walk on something else than concrete in the city. And now Paris has 55 schoolyards that have been transformed like that, and we are like going now in the streets to go further. And I'm very much convinced that the 21st century cities will be green and blue much more than they are together. This has only 3 examples, but I think that shows what local leaders committed to embrace ecological transformation are really facing as challenges and are realizing in terms of transformation. And I think it's really, and I guess you will share it, it's about thinking about today and tomorrow at the same time. Today by trying to improve the life of the people by reducing pollution, energy costs, improving food or water supplies, and tomorrow by preserving the earth and let a livable planet to our kids. And I think that today and tomorrow sounds to me also as a quite good definition for politics in the very best sense of the sense of this word. I told you about these 3 examples, but also about 3 pillars. Let me really go faster on the 2 others: civil society mobilization and international cooperation. I think that the role of local leaders, mayors, is definitely to build and implement public policy. That's the first role we have. But even if we are really good at it, and we definitely are, we are also aware that climate change challenge can only be met in a collective and societal dynamic. For the first time in humanity, we are all on the very same boat, and we all have to be that change that we need to have. So in Paris, that meant participatory budget, implication from individuals to big companies, local referendum. We tried many ways, all kind of tools to reinvent local democracy and to get people on board with us in the dynamic. And I guess that this is one of the hardest part of the job of a mayor, because no one has the magical formula of how to build that, except for the moment from dialogue, personal energy and commitment to do so. But this is really one of the clues of the future. And eventually I want to say, obviously, a word about European and international collaboration. First, because it's very important in that climate fight, but it's not so well known how much mayors are fighting also at the European and international level. What is very interesting with climate at the European and international level is that cooperation is the right word that is guiding us. For years, you've seen like cities competing. I want to be the best, the most attractive one, or whatever. But when it comes to climate, we are really good friends, I have to say, and we cooperate. We have all the same problems. We have all the same emergencies. So we work together. We create coalition. We copy each other, and also we make that alliance that makes big differences when it needs to influence state legislation or European Commission decision to foster the ecological transition. I obviously also want to talk about European cooperation because that is where Eckart and I met. We met in 2015 or 14, I don't even remember, when you were, and you still are, the president of that important European network for us, the energy cities. Paris was at that time preparing COP21. That was really an important international meeting on climate. And our cooperation was really important on many ways. First, because Energy City is really a very, there are many networks of cities, very C40, UCLG. But Energy City, and it's not because I'm here in Heidelberg, but I have to say it was my favorite one to work in. Because first, it was very well structured, efficient in its action, in negotiation with the European Commission. I have to say, as a French, that I think it has to do with the German character of the president, maybe, I'm quite sure. But it was really interesting. And secondly, which was really interesting, it was a really nice place to think about future. When you're elected, you're always running, everything is very fast. But when we were meeting 1 day, 2 days with energy cities, you had people that were really having that step forward. And it was really, really interesting to me and to bring back solution to Paris. And also, I have to say, it was a very, very interesting network on the human level. Eckart has teams that are incredible, and that human atmosphere was very important for me too. And I have to tell you that, in a way, when I met Eckart, it was kind of a political crush when we, not crush, when we met. It's not really a joke. It's because when you're a politician of the ecological transition, it's really challenging and exciting, but it's also really hard some days. Even with the evolution of the context, people awareness raising, you have a lot of opponents, mockeries. You met a lot of people really good at talking, but not at all at implementing. So when you meet like a partner to go on the way, it's really, really important. And I have to say that, and I have to say a word about you now, that when I met Eckart, I definitely found in him a lot of qualities in his leadership to fight climate change. Because Eckart is a man of conviction, climate change is definitely in his DNA, and he has a lot of good qualities to fight and to put that political vision to make the changes our territory needs. I have to say also that I appreciate a lot that he's a man of action. What I was telling you is like a lot of people are talking, and we need now implementation, and nothing else. So that was really, really interesting. And above all, is a mayor. And this is for me an enormous quality. He knows very well his territory. He has a profound respect for the people of Heidelberg and for the people in the cities. And I have to say, we talked a lot about Heidelberg when we were meeting. And with that inspiration, he was like one of the best spokesmen of the local authorities at the European and at the international level. I have to say that far from some shiny postures that we saw on the international level, because there are a lot of stars of the climate, he was like very efficient and listened to. It was very important for me to say that tonight and to share with you also my experience, not only about climate, but about that cooperation between Paris, Heidelberg, Europe. And as I'm here, I'm sorry, I'm going to add 2 or 3 things also, because behind Eckart, that the guy that first I saw really like as a workaholic, really efficient, I also want to talk really rapidly about the man that I met. And I wanted to tell you 3 things. First, that I found in him a very respectful and feminist man, because I have to tell you that, and we could talk about it as well, that being a young woman in politics from the Green Party is not really, really easy in everyday life, especially when you deal with some energy, network, like really serious job that just only guys can handle, of course. It was really a relief when we met also, and to have that really nice sharing together. I also have to tell you something very important that I discovered about Eckart, is like he's an horrible dancer. I don't know if you remember. We worked a lot, but once we shared a dance, we are really bad, the 2 of us. On Scottish pipes, it was really nice. But fortunately, there are no picture of that, and there's not a quality to red for action, don't worry. But more seriously, I wanted to tell you how much also it meant for me to all these years that you were one of the first people to send me a message on the 14th of November 2015, the next day after the terror attacks in Paris. And I have to say that expression of your solidarity, of Heidelberg solidarity, in this very particular moment was really important, and was for me the very beginning of, yes, not only work, but friendship. So really, to really conclude my speech, let me tell you again my pleasure to be with you tonight, but also that I feel a bit ashamed, as I told you, not to speak German. So, I'm so French. So I ask for your indulgence, but I'm trying to find my speech in German tonight. Willing to say, lieber Eckart, ich möchte dir noch einmal sagen, wie gerne ich in den letzten Jahren an deiner Seite gewesen bin. Gemeinsam haben wir Kämpfe für das Klima geführt, und davon bin ich überzeugt, unseren Beitrag zum Jahrhunderts Herausforderungen geleistet haben. Während unserer gemeinsamen Arbeit war Heidelberg immer eine Quelle des Stolzes für dich und der Inspiration für unseren Austausch. Ich wünsche dir das Beste für Zukunft, und Heidelberg, unsere Städte, Europa brauchen Führung, Persönlichkeit wie du, die jeden Tag den Grundstein für eine nachhaltige, aber auch gerechtere und sichere Welt legen. Ich freue mich sehr, bei dieser Wahl an deiner Seite zu sein. Vielen Dank und viel Glück. Danke.
Let me say, Célia, I'm getting a little bit red, as you mentioned. First of all, I would say wonderful. Many thanks for your contribution about what we can do on the local level to fight against climate change. I think it's exactly what you mentioned. It's about a trustful experience of information, first of all, between cities, to share experiences, to learn from each other, to take over good ideas. That's what I have done from Paris and from Montpellier. Den kostenlosen öffentlichen Nahverkehr. That's what you have done in Paris before we have thought about it. And it was in France a reaction also to say, yes, we wanted to fight against climate change, but we see also the Yellow Vest movement. Sie können sich alle noch daran erinnern, in Frankreich gab es eine Riesenbewegung gegen jede Klimaschutzaktivität Die Energiepreise sind drastisch gestiegen und es gab Demonstrationen auf den Straßen, die Reifen haben gebrannt, also eine Nicht-Akzeptanz einer zu harten, vermeintlichen also eines Preisanstiegs, was in Frankreich sofort zu entsprechenden Demonstrationen geführt hat. Von daher war das auch eine Reaktion, den Menschen entgegenzukommen und gerade in den sozialen Fragen natürlich eine Entlastung zu ermöglichen. So, priceless or less expensive mass transport system is one of those experiences. We are at the moment just trying to take over the Oasis project from Paris, which you mentioned perfectly. Es geht darum, how we can now also work on this segment where we normally don't want to work. That's climate adaptation, also die Anpassung an die Klimaveränderung. Bisher gingen wir davon aus, that this is not necessary, yeah? That we can achieve a goal, that climate change is not taking part or taking apart so heavily. But this is not the reality. As you mentioned, the hot summers of the last 3-4 years show us that we have to go into the adaptation process very rapidly also, that we have to start with new flood plans. That's what you have done in Paris, that's what we have done in Heidelberg. We have just ordered 3 new fire brigade trucks who are able to work in the forest for forest fire. Forest fire was not common in Heidelberg over decades. Now we have to think about it again. So it's all changing our whole process. And as you mentioned also, the integration of the citizens into those processes to get the awareness, starting with the youngest generation, we call them energy hawks, in kindergartens and schools. You mentioned them in a different name, but it's all the same idea. Get the vision created together with the next generation, setting up new programs, starting new corporations, and then work together on the local level. What you also mentioned is something which we always have to take into our mind, that our local engagement is very important, but we need also those European and international experience exchanges. Benjamin Bauer, I don't know if you have heard about this person. He already passed away, but he was also, I know him very personally, he already passed away, and he has written a book, If Mayors Rules the World. So it's a very strong message, yeah? But it's exactly what you also mentioned, what we try to create. We try to work on the international level now together, because national governments are mostly not going so far, don't have this deep trust into the citizens, and don't react in the speed as it is necessary. To give you an example, the Heidelberg Bahnstadt, so that's where we are. It's not just a building, it's a whole city. It's constructed 15 years ago with an energy standard 15 years ago, which will be a national standard in 15 years. So there is a gap of nearly 20, 25, 30 years between the standard on the local level and the national standard. I don't know when this standard is coming, but just in the speed we discuss those topics, it takes a long time. That's the reason why we said we have to work on the international scale together. That's the reason why in the Paris Agreement, it was not an agreement just between national levels. We integrated the first time into such an international commitment, an international paper on the COP meeting, that cities have to be on the table and have to be seen as partners. Before we were just NGOs, so non-governmental organizations, as you call them. And that's the difference. Today, over the network where we're working together, Celia, my person, and a lot of international and national cities, we've defined a new tool, which we call the Covenant of Mayors. The Covenant of Mayors is a self-commitment, not of the state level, of the local level, to define our own targets. So the national target is to be climate neutral in 2050. That's the goal. What we decided is to be carbon neutral in 2035 or 2030. This commitment has been signed already of more than 10,000 cities globally. Our network, Ende is running these testimonials, and the biannual reports, which have to send to our network, are analyzed if there is really a clear target, a clear political message. So it must be always based on a political decision by the city council, and therefore it's also something which is very strong from the political message for those who are integrated. If you think about 10,000 cities who already signed this commitment, we're talking about, together with the C40 cities, about, I would say, 20%, maybe 25% of the world population, because they're all living in cities. And they have already taken a decision, political, which is much stronger than the national level. This keeps us up to work together, to define new ideas, make it concrete, and try to help each other as it is best way. Never, ever, everybody is perfect. That's clear. But everybody has a good idea, everybody's moving in one direction and helps the others to go in this direction. For me in Heidelberg, it was very important to mention, I wanted to be for kostenloser öffentlicher Nahverkehr, and I could mention, I want to do this like we have done this in Paris, like Montpellier has done this. So why should we not integrate it in the same level, especially under the social question? Because this is one of the key points. Climate change cannot be just a tool for rich cities or people who can pay every solar module on their roof. It has to be a possible solution for everybody, and it must also give everybody a perspective for a future vision, because otherwise nobody would follow you. So if there is not a real green economy, there are jobs, nobody will follow you. And we know this also now in the energy crisis here in Heidelberg, in Germany, in Europe. The price is going up, and what we're doing is the next coal power plant is on board. The next nuclear power plant is on board. So we throw out very quickly all our main perspectives in such a situation. And that's depending on if you don't bring the climate movement in parallel with the possibilities you have. In total, to get this idea, in total, for the whole, we call it the Endverbraucher, also der Endenergieverbrauch in Europe, we produce about, I think, 4.2% in green energy. In Germany, 4.6% for the Endenergieverbrauch. This is much, much too low to talk about. We have already achieved an economy which is based on green energy. In the electricity part, we are much stronger, but in general, for the whole production line, it's still under 5%. So if there is not a big movement into the renewables, there will be no perspective for climate change. If there is not a big movement into new mobility questions like change the mobility of the people, we won't reach the targets. That's really the point where we are at the moment. So we have to be much stronger going into this direction. and we have to find a way how and in which way we have to go into this perspective. So, I don't want to make too many comments. I just want to ask you, do you first of all have any questions to Célia about Paris, about the vision of Paris, about your activity in Paris, and then we may switch to the international level, and then I can also go to some examples of Heidelberg. No more questions?
Gut, dann darf ich mich ganz herzlich bedanken. Das war so ein kleiner Exkurs mal von Heidelberg ein bisschen in die Welt. Ehrlich gesagt, wir sollten das häufiger tun. Also ich mache das ganz oft, weil it gives you a reflection. It gives you also a strong commitment. This is something what we always do. We say, do you have a problem? Yeah, I have the same problem. So you're getting stronger if you have a coalition of people who are believing in the same, where you are a little bit shaking with your political mind. Are you going the right way or not? Therefore, it's very important to have these international coalitions. It's not just buzzwords or stupid commitments. It's very concrete. It helps a lot to get your way on the local level, and it's also strengthening your vision and the clear commitment in which direction you can go. Therefore, this international experience exchange is so important, working together on a concrete base and having this broader mind of global scale problems. I think this is something which is very important. So many thanks that you're taking time. Vielen Dank, dass Sie heute Abend hier waren. Der kleine Exkurs so ein bisschen auf die internationale Ebene. Also ganz herzlichen Dank und nochmal einen riesen Applaus für Célia. Dankeschön. Ihnen noch einen schönen Abend. Vielen Dank. Vielen Dank.